in conversation with Elizabeth Miles. Elizabeth Miles is a renowned expert in authenticity in business and accomplished author, a transformational life and business coach, and inspiring host of the Power to Pivot podcast. With a mission to help others dance through and with fear, Elizabeth empowers individuals to overcome obstacles and transform their lives, emphasizing the power of choice and the importance of authenticity. And on today's episode of Photo Interview, it's my utmost pleasure and joy to have on the show today Elizabeth Miles. How are you doing, Elizabeth?
I'm so well. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today.
Yeah, it's my
How are you
pleasure.
doing?
I'm doing fine too. It's my pleasure to have you on the show and quite excited we're going to be having a conversation around your works.
Much
Yeah.
appreciated.
Absolutely. So, Elizabeth, I wanted to ask you, could you tell us about your book? This is where you pivot the shift from fear to freedom. And I want us to say that's such an amazing, lovely, beautiful, and awesome title to name a book. And I'd love to ask you, how does this book come about? What inspired you to write This is where you pivot?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. So I'll hold it up here. Hopefully, everybody can see it. This is
Yeah,
where you pivot.
beautiful.
This is the probably the, I don't even know, third or fourth version of the cover. So most frequent, most current, most up to date. But you asked where this came about or how this came about. Um, Well, my most of my life I spent in fear, but I didn't know that it was fear. And I grew up never really knowing sort of what I wanted to do, couldn't really get myself on a path, and ended up in a very toxic, abusive relationship that I knew was not for me. Spent a long time job hopping, couldn't really figure out my career. Um, it, Life was a mess. And I was standing on a mountain by a waterfall and literally heard a voice that said, "This is where you pivot." And I knew that while I didn't know what that meant, I knew it was something that I needed to pay attention to. And so the very next day, I was hiking a mountain and kept hearing that voice, "This is where you pivot." I was climbing this mountain completely overtaken by fear. The path was extremely narrow. There was nothing to hold on to. There's a cliff right here, so I could see my impending doom right next to me. And that's all I kept focusing on was that that fact of, oh my God, like I'm gonna die here. And I didn't really know how to what to do with that. And what I discovered in that moment was I'm afraid. My whole life flashed before my eyes. I kept telling myself I can't do this. Um, and I was playing over and over and over again. I was playing all the reasons that I thought I shouldn't be, but I was also bringing other people into it. So projecting somebody else's judgment onto me, somebody else is going to be laughing at me because I'm climbing this mountain and I'm too overweight, and just making excuse after excuse. And that voice that said, "This is where you pivot," just kept coming back to me. And I realized at during that hike just how much fear controlled my life up to that point. And I knew that I could make another choice. So to get myself off the mountain, I I started focusing more on the present moment and what was going on and enjoying the scenery, being outdoors, the surroundings that I was with, um, being in nature. And that got me through one of the most pivotal moments of my life. When I got back to camp that night, the book sort of downloaded out of me. I knew there were all sorts of lessons that I still needed to unpack, but I also knew that I wanted to share this experience and the lessons that I was learning through it with everyone else. Because we all get to these moments in life where we feel stuck, we feel like we're struggling, we feel unfulfilled. And when we start to let ourselves get into the nitty gritty of it, we're afraid. We're afraid to make a choice. We're afraid of what other people think. We're afraid because society tells us no, we shouldn't or we can't. And it doesn't have to be that way. We get to choose what we experience in our life and how we go about and how we feel. And that's really where this book came from. It is a conversation with me and you, the reader, about fear and the lessons that I've learned, and encouraging you to take your power back, because you don't have to be afraid of fear. You can dance through life with it.
Wow. This is so powerful. And to me, it is so timely. Yeah, very timely. Because what I say, I think several weeks ago, actually, last month, because today is 2nd of September, last month I had some issue and I was so afraid that I had to start writing a poem trapped in the web of fears. I was like, oh, the fears is too much in my head. Can I do this again? Am I fit to do this? There's this feeling of, oh, will it be possible again? I mean, will you be able to achieve it if you try again? So, and fear is a very great limiter. It's something that I think everybody can resonate with. And I think everybody must have been through that in one or two areas of their life. We're all human. We've experienced fear in one or two certain areas of our lives. And it's very timely, very something that someone can relate with. And I'm so excited that this is coming in an amazing time like this. Yeah, this is very inspiring. That's such a great
Thank
one,
you.
really.
It's interesting because we know fear, we know the word fear, but when we think about it, fear comes in so many different ways in our
Yes.
lives. Like that, what you just described is fear, right? We can talk about judgment, judging other people. That comes through fear.
Yeah.
Um, and I think now, where we are in the world, I think we're in a place where we need to start wrestling with that. But the only way to do that is to go within and first recognize what it is. It's fear. And two, understand that we get to choose. We don't have to accept that from ourselves. And when we let ourselves sink into that sort of radical accountability for ourselves and our own power, um, we can really start to make a change in the world, because it really does start with the example that we set as an individual.
Wow. That's very amazing. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. That's such an amazing answer to your question. I'm quite excited to hear what inspired you to write the book. Now, I'd also like to ask you, for readers who haven't read the book yet, and without giving much information away, could we have a sneak of what we'd expect in terms of themes picking up? This is where you pivot.
So, as I said, the book is a conversation between you and me. That's sort of my writing style. I like to write as if we're chatting over coffee. And the book starts out on the mountain, and I'm going through what's going through my mind, and how I realized that I was in fear. And then from there, you're going to get lessons learned. Within 6 months of writing this book, I my entire life completely changed.
Wow.
And the power of the pivot moment is really the theme of this book, because you are at any given moment, you can choose your power to pivot. You can choose to take your pivot back, or your power back, and shift your focus onto something else. And so as we go through the book, that's what we're talking about. I use my own real experiences from my own life, situations, relationships, um, and the lessons that I have learned, and applying this power to pivot to those. And then little nuggets of how you can implement these strategies that I've learned into your own life as well.
Wow. That's such amazing, really. That's such an amazing response. It's quite lovely to have a snippet. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. Love the sound of
Thank,
it. Yeah.
thank you.
Absolutely. And I also see that you have another book, I mean, in the name of The Journey to Healing, Love Yourself. And I wanted to say, I love this, your Harry of titles. They're quite lovely. They're something that we human beings really, really do need, yeah? Yeah, especially in a world like this. Now, would you also love to tell us a bit about the making of that as well?
Yes, thank you. So I don't have a copy of that here to show the cover, but The Journey to Healing, Love Yourself. So after we've made the choice to pivot, what comes next, right? There's a lesson in what caused that fear. And the journey to healing is sort of like the next step. It's what happens after you've made that choice to pivot. And it's a journey back again into yourself, so that you can start to love yourself. You're not sitting in fear, but you also don't have to judge yourself. You can accept yourself for where you are, honor your journey, honor your life, the light and the dark, because we're both. Um, and so the journey to healing, love yourself, is a love letter to you, really, from me to you, and then you to you. We talk about how to accept yourself, self love, practices that you can incorporate to start to understand how to love and accept who you are, and tap into your authenticity, because it's really easy with social media and being in the world today. It's hard to be a person when the world says you have to be a certain way.
Mm.
But when you tap into your authenticity, it's
City,
like
yeah?
you can just be who you are and accept and love
Absolutely.
yourself.
Yeah.
And so that's what that book is about. And so I have love letters in there in the content, from me to the reader. And then there's a section at the end where you can start to write your own letters to yourself as motivation, encouragement, celebrating your success along the way. There's lessons, strategies. Again, I'm using real experiences to go through the content, but the the nuts and bolts of it is you got to love yourself and step into who you are.
Hmm. Wow. That's so amazing. I mean, I love your incorporation and your example with the social media thing. Yeah, that's quite lovely. And the fact that we should take into our own authenticity. Yeah, very important as well. Thank you so much for sharing. This is quite lovely to know. Very lovely to
Thank you.
know. Yeah. And apart from this is where you pivot and the journey to healing, do you have any other works you've authored or say currently working on?
Yes, I have one more book that is currently published. It's called Connect You, A Guide to Your Authentic Life. And this is sort of the culmination, right? If and it wasn't planned this way from the start, but it's sort of a trilogy. You've got you're pivoting, you're loving yourself, and now you're diving in to do some of the mindset work. So Connect You is a workbook. It is all about mindset, setting goals from that authentic space, so that you can really start to tap in and create and feel into the life that feels really good for you.
Oh, that's great. That's very great. Thank you so much for sharing that too. I love the sound of it. Thank you. Now, as an
Yes.
author, could you tell us what publishing is like for a published author like yourself? Are there any challenges count survived in your book and also ever since it got published? Also, how do you handle criticism as a writer? I'd particularly love to hear your take on that.
Ooh, these are good questions. Um, Publishing, okay, this is my take, right? When you're a writer or a creator, you are literally serving up a piece of your soul on a platter for the world to see. And that is freaking scary. um,
It's scary.
and so publishing is one of the most exciting and scary and I like there's so many things that go into it because you you have to take this from an idea and then start to refine it, and there's so many steps along the way. um I had my first draft when I went to my editor, when I finally found an editor, and at that point, I had no idea what the editing process was going to be like. I thought he was going to fix my grammar, punctuation, and we'd be done with it. And he's like, "Oh, no, no, no! Like this isn't this is not like published pretty yet." So he walked me through the process, and there was so much to learn that I'd always written as a kid. I loved to write. I loved creative writing. I was good at it. To be able to craft this book um, in a way that was print and publish ready, I was not prepared for the steps that were required for it. And so it's a learning process. And I think let yourself be ready for that learning process. Dive in, let yourself go on that journey, because the more that you learn, the better writer you become. And that's really sort of, I love the question of how you handle criticism as a writer, because the more we write, the better writers we are. The more we read, the better
Absolutely.
writers we are.
Yeah.
Um, and we only get better when people give us feedback.
Advice.
So I don't really take criticism um, in a bad way. I'm appreciative of it. I also recognize, and I think this is another important lesson that I learned through the publishing process, is not everybody is your reader, and that's okay. So somebody who might not like the book, maybe the book's just not for them. Maybe they don't like my writing style, maybe it was not the type of personal development book that they were looking for. That's okay. Maybe you'll come back to it another time and you'll love it. I don't write fiction, so if you're more of a fiction reader, the book's not for you.
Yeah.
Um, Go into it with the understanding that it's okay that not everyone is
Likes.
going to be your person. And when you get comments, look at it from that perspective. Were they my target? Were they the person that I was trying to reach in my book? Because that also reframes their feedback a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. I love your take on this actually. This is very, very impressive, very great. And I love the fact that, the more we get feedbacks, the more better we become. The more we read, the more better we become. The more we keep growing. It's very impressive, and that's very, very true, really. Thank you for sharing. That's quite educative as well. Yeah, yeah. Now, is there anything that you'd love to share with the viewers about your book that we did not mention in this interview, and you'd love the viewers to know? Is there anything particular?
Be prepared for a journey. Uh, be prepared. Just be prepared. I've had the comments that I get most of the time is thank you. I feel like I know you, and this book helped me change my life, which I'm super grateful to have been able to deliver that for someone. Um, I always, when you read the book, please reach out to me, because I love to hear what pivot you're going through, and um, you know, we can inspire and motivate each other to keep moving through these pivots of life.
Yeah, yeah. It's a thrilling experience when you get a feedback from readers as an author. You tell you that, oh, I love this. It speaks to my life. It addressed some things of my life. It's helped me, overcome my fears. It's an amazing feedbacks. And I do understand that feeling as an author. It's a feeling of excitement, of fulfillment as well, and of joy, a great joy, really. Yeah.
It's an honor.
Absolutely. I would like you to read a short section of your book to the audience. But before then, I'd love to ask you, as a published author, what sort of advice do you have for other writers who are still struggling with publishing a book in this
Oh, the
category?
good question. Be prepared. I'm gonna challenge you, but it's a
Oh,
good
goodness.
challenge. Um, just dive in. I would say one of the most important pieces of the process is the editing and the refinement. Um, Take the time to vet the people that you're working with as part of the project, and that it's your editor, that's your cover designer, anybody that you bring into the project of publishing this book. And it doesn't matter what genre it's in. It could be personal
Yeah.
development, it could be fiction, it could be history, right? But this is a piece of you that you're putting out into the world. So make sure that the people that you bring into the project are aligned with what you're trying to do. That was something, fortunately, I was very lucky with my editor. Josh was amazing, and he edited my book, all my books,
Wow.
um, because he understood what I was trying to do. He himself was an author in the same genre,
Oh,
and he understood and took the time to really dive in and ask me, like, what are you trying to do here? Like, what's your goal?
so cool.
And when I got to the cover and designing that, um, I think I went through two or three cover artists because the first couple were not, they weren't in alignment. So you can do it quickly. Yes, you can do it through services online. Just make sure that whoever you're using understands what your goal is and sees that vision with you, because that's what's going to make or break the finished piece.
Wow. That's a great advice you've got. And I'm hoping that viewers, including myself, would love to utilize it. Thank you so much for the amazing advice. Thank you. Yeah. Now, I'd like you to read a short section of your book to the audience. It could be your favorite line, paragraph, or even a page if you would like to.
Yep. So I have one paragraph from the introduction, and then I have another short, brief, not even a page, that I would like to share. So there are those moments in life when you must make a decision. Do you stay where you are or move forward? It's not always a question of choosing the easiest outcome. Sometimes you have to consider which option is best for you at the time, regardless of how easy it would be to walk away or choose differently. Every day, we're charged with making decisions that affect our life. It can get complicated, even uncomfortable. At times, it's downright painful. Those are the moments that can be the toughest to push through, but they can be the most rewarding at their conclusion. These are moments of growth when we are pushed to move beyond what we perceive as our own limitations into something greater than we could have ever imagined. This is where you pivot. I'm going to skip a couple pages for this next short section. Ultimately, what I have come to realize is no matter what situation you're going through, there's always another choice, another path. Sometimes that path is covered with rubble and is really hard to see, but it's there. When you are so focused on the problem or the path right in front of you, It's natural to feel stuck. You want a resolution to the issue presented, you want a way out. Sometimes you find yourself doing the same thing over and over, hoping for a different result. I know I did for years. I thought I had to tackle each mountain head on, directly, without acknowledging that there could be another, easier, simpler way. Every conflict took me down the same trail, leaving me feeling angry, anxious, and afraid because I kept taking the same approach. What I've learned is this: look for the scenic route. It took me a long time to realize this one. I spent so much time and energy trying to dive headfirst into problems. I tried to move through my emotions at lightning speed. I tried to get to the end point of any situation as fast as possible without
Wow.
taking time to sit back and think through what I felt or thought or what I wanted. That method left me feeling exhausted without solution and moving in what seemed to be an ongoing cycle that led to nowhere.
Wow.
This is where you pivot.
Wow. Wow. Your okay, let me first start with your writing, your style, your tone. Your tone sound impressively and beautifully poetic in nature. And in your writing, I can sense a bit of, I think this would be very good for people undergoing some obstacles, some delay, some challenges with life, and also fear as well. I love what you said, there's always another choice, another path, there's always another way to go on. And it sounds very comforting, inspiring, and also in a bit to lift up the heavy cloud of fear that might tend to stay in our heart and limit us to do certain things, to take certain decision, to go a certain miles because we feel we are being trapped. And fear is a very, very bad rate limiter. This is very inspiring. I mean, this short section you just read, it's very powerful. That it's got to be interpreting it in different ways, really. Thank you. An amazing, recitation. I love it.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, it's very impressive. I'm really. I know I don't want to go into emotional.
It's okay. It's okay. I guess the one thing I do want to share, and this is something that, on the podcast that I share it in this book and throughout the trilogy, really.
Yeah.
And it is the overarching theme of the power to pivot.
Mm,
You are never stuck,
that's stuff.
you are never lost,
Never
and
lost.
you are never, ever alone. At
Never
any
alone.
given moment, you can use your power to pivot, make a new choice, and start again.
Start again. Wow. Thank you. I must say that I'm particularly inspired, motivated with this amazing conversation around your beautiful titles. And I want to say thank you so much. And now, just in case we have some viewers who are currently watching the video interview, and they would love to get a copy of the book, on what platform are they available on for purchase?
Yes. So again, it's this is where you pivot, the shift from fear to freedom. You can get it on my website, march4thmediacompany.com. There's the digital download available there, so you can dive right in. Again, that's march4thmediacompany.com. You can also, if you want the paperback version, you can get it on Amazon.
Yeah, that's great. And I love to link in the description part of this interview where interested viewers can get a copy of Elizabeth Myers' books directly on Amazon and Barnes& and Nobles and also another platform. So thank you so much, Elizabeth, for accepting the invitation to be featured on P English Literature. I must say again that this conversation is quite inspiring, very lovely, and I thoroughly enjoy it.
Thank you so much. This was a great interview. I really appreciate the time.
Yeah, my pleasure as well. Thank you. Yeah.